That's good. That's good.
Well, yeah, I think that, and then like,
Pastor Wright's my friend. It's funny because we didn't know each other for decades. When we started coming out of grace, we just like, God knits your heart together, and that's a friend. So you're friends with everyone in the body.
Yeah,
Obviously,
that's true. But how did you end up here? I didn't invite you, did I?
I invited myself.
Yeah, that's good. I like self-invitation. That's just like you. Nobody asked you to come.
nobody. What are you doing here?
I invited myself, and you didn't throw me out, so we became friends.
It's still early.
He was like, "Look at the cat dragged in."
Yeah, it's still early, right?
All right, so what are we going to talk about today?
Sin. Sin and its effects.
Sin and its effects.
Sin and its effects, and what is the solution? Problem.
Hey, Eddie.
I was thinking
Sin
the verse
nature.
says this morning.
I got a question. Why do animals die? They're not in the body of sin and death. Why
I
they
just
die?
forgot what it was.
Everything's affected by sin. The whole world is under curse.
If
Adam
God
screwed
is for
everything
you,
up.
who
Adam
can be
Adam's
against
sin,
not even your own
nothing
son?
but death.
That's the thing, isn't it?
I read
It's like
something interesting.
all,
Oswald Chambers.
God put creation under Adam,
That's right.
and Adam's
Yeah.
fall affects, just like when we mess up, it affects the people that we cover.
Yeah, we could sum it up like this. Romans 6:23 says that the wages of sin is death. But the gift of God. But the gift is a gift of God.
My little dog doesn't sin, she died. I mean, why?
I love it in Revelation. It says there'll be no more death,
To this day, it's still
no more death, no more curse.
The wages is sin.
You want to sit next to your
Yeah.
husband?
I'm at the cross, so the wages
over here.
of my sin is death.
It's paid for. Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. So
But
yeah,
the
it's
people in the world,
Let's talk about the fact that
paid for.
the provision, so the issue of sanctification. And it's interesting that when people think of sin, they think of a personal act committed. You did a sin, you committed a sin. But I think what you're wanting to bring out, and which is worth talking about, is the effects of the introduction of Satan's policy and how that's infiltrated and touched everything in the world. So 1 John 5:19b, the whole world lies in iniquity. Like, I don't think people believe that. Now, we're not talking about, the created world, sunrise, beautiful creation. We're talking about a system of thinking that denies the existence of a God, repudiates the authority, even if you acknowledge his existence. That whole system is in rebellion against God. And it takes on not just, the idea of drug addiction or, very interestingly, so, we see one viewpoint, in terms of this war. And yeah, we got to make sure that that country does not get a nuclear weapon. Yeah, okay, agree, okay. But in the process, the tactical issue of the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so now you have a chokehold on oil and commerce, and you wouldn't imagine that it had international repercussions, but it does. You know, I was speaking to Pastor Clyde. So in the Philippines, they have closed down Mondays and Fridays and Mondays, government offices, some schools, to reduce consumption of energy. And it's like, wow, like I wouldn't have thought that had that measure of impact on a nation. And they're not alone. There's a number of nations, Pakistan is another one, where coming from the government is this mandate, like close your business. No business will be done on those days for the sake of maintaining. Because something like 90% of the energy, oil and natural gas, comes from the Middle East, from that part of the world. But we don't live in that part of the world. So the impact that we see is like on a digit. What are we paying now for gas? But if you take a step back, I mean, they don't sell gas by the gallon or in other parts of the world. It's by the liter. And you start looking at those digits, and it kind of equates to like maybe it's been the norm is $5 a gallon. The norm. And then you have a mean income that's like, second world or third world trying to pay for that. So anyway, so one attempt at a solution creates 5 new problems, and that's how the world runs. Whereas God's solution is immediate and is absolute. Positional truth is immediate. Absolute because it's guaranteed by God. So Paul says, 2 Corinthians 5:19, he is reconciled. God is reconciled the world to himself. It's this new orientation. What does that mean? The planet is not spinning on a different axis. It means that there's just a way of thinking that's thinking with God, not about Him. That's thinking God's thoughts in the details of life. And so as we discuss these matters, it's no small issue that we could have a general conversation about the government, about economies, about any social issues, and we're all, take a sip of coffee, bite my muffin, and then go home. Whereas divine viewpoint says, what is God doing in the midst of this? What is the Lord up to? And we can know that based upon the scriptures, based upon fellowship, based upon the reality of this way of thinking, that we're not looking for governments to answer the problems of this world. We're not looking for an economic reset to, So think of this, capitalism, as far as an economic policy, is probably the best. It beats socialism, beats communism, but it has its own problems. Part of the problem is there's not a lack of wealth, there's a problem with distribution or accumulation. Jeff Bezos, took 5 years, 4.5 years, to have a yacht built for him at the cost of $350 million. $350 million. Do you know how many, what would happen if a ministry that was having an impact got one of the 350? Think of the impact that would have. But it's all, And why? Because it's the sin nature that says, you know, enough is never enough. Enough is never enough. You know, you get one car, then you want two. Or, you know, it's inherent in our fallen nature. Where did that come from? Where did that thinking come from? It was introduced in the garden and produced in all of us, in our natural disposition, selfishness. And it can trickle down into, you know, how we think about everything, just about. Right. And this is why I think last week we talked about how good it is that we are together, because I came because of you. I you know, it's like not to be anything or do anything, but to receive, you know, because that's the way God, you know, God's thoughts. Ephesians chapter 4, you know, till we all come into the unity of the faith, the doctrine and the thinking of God. And so we're helping each other, you know, because everything else, every other way of thinking is against this way of thinking. And why is that radical? Well, it's not radical, it's biblical. But I don't, you know, people don't want to accept the biblical stuff. So a person with, you know, a PhD or, you know, some sort of a celebrity now has a voice to speak into young people's lives. Why? Because they have athletic prowess. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the fact that, you know, young people will pay attention to that, but they won't pay attention to a man that's walked with God for 40 years. I will. So it's very interesting. So sin, not the act, but the way of thinking that God's not on his throne, that man can determine his own destiny, that, you know, accomplishment and striving is the thing that should be my goal. My objective in life is that, you know, like this bumper sticker that says, he who dies with the most toys wins. Yeah, but you're dead and somebody else is playing with your toys. You know, it's like it's stupid thinking, but that's the mindset, you know. Like, and the 5 I wills of Lucifer. So Lucifer wasn't satisfied with the place that he had been placed by the Creator, by his Creator. You know what he saw? He saw the right hand. He saw the seat that Jesus would go to in his ascension and in his session at the right hand of the Father. He saw that seat, and like Haman thought, you know, when he went, you know, like you want to honor the greatest guy, you know. And, you know, of course he was thinking it was himself, you know. And so the king said, well, you know, get my animal, put my robes on him, and take him through the city. And that person was Mordecai. Yeah. Oh my gosh, no. You know? And so, yeah, that seat was for the one that Lucifer's system thought for sure. Like, if you get rid of him, you know, the idea that Jesus Christ wasn't just ignored or, you know, muzzled or any of that. There was a contract out on his life. I mean, from like early on in his public ministry. The only solution that we could think of is that we've got to offer. And that was, you know, in that day, in that period of time, there was no legal accountability, like, you know, for somebody to show up dead. You know, just get rid of the body. You know, We don't know what happened there. Let's get rid of the body before it stinks. So, that, Pastor, I think is the impact of sin, not an isolated act, but you brought out something interesting about it affects our let's put it this way, our disobedience to God in a personal way has an impact to others around us. But more than that, it's like it's our unconscious maybe agreement with the system of thinking that Satan has. An eye for an eye. You've heard from, ancient times, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Like people don't want justice; they want to get even. And if they can use the court systems to do that, we had this last windstorm, had a tree fall on our shed, and and it wasn't our tree; it was on somebody else's property. So the owners of the tree, okay, were a little apprehensive about getting in touch with us because their thinking is that we want a pound of flesh because it's your tree. We're going to sue you, And we said just call the tree guys, cut it down, let's go. We're good. And that way of thinking was foreign to them. Because the norm and standard is somebody's got to pay for this. Somebody's got to be, act of God. No, it's not. What is act of God? But we don't calculate that way in the world systems. Anyway, those are just some thoughts.
All I said was one word.
I know.
Well, because you
That's
were
a lot of thoughts.
talking about the isolated acts of sin
So
as
the,
well, right? Brandon Allison brought up something yesterday that I thought was a pretty good thing to use in soul winning. That Bill showed him, like people talking about how good they are and stuff. And Bill says, could you imagine what if you did one thing wrong a day? And you did that for every day for a year, and you've been around for 65 years. How many wrong things have you done? And then to prevent, like you said, the provision, for that. And I don't know. I just thought that was pretty good way that people could relate.
Jesus is the answer.
Well, but let me tell you all the good things that I've done to offset. Yeah, let's do the math, and it never adds up. It's like
It's all represented. All that man can do is represented by the fig leaves. When they knew they were ashamed and they were fearful, they sowed fig leaves to themselves. Those fig leaves can be tied to every single thing that all of humanism, all of socialism, it's all represented by capitalism. The whole thing is represented by the fig leaves. And summarized by Proverbs 14 and 16, it says, there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death, not the way of death, but the ways. It's all death. The fall brought death. The blood brings life. That's really what the whole Bible is about. Man that is determined to do it on his own, as Pastor Wright said. That's what we got right now. The whole world lies in wickedness. It lies in wickedness because you have the masses are going their own way. We here at this table went a different way, the way. We accepted the way, so that's why we're friends with each other. That's where our hearts are knit together, and we understand that. But the gift it's a gift of God. It's a gift of God. Man is striving. He's striving he tries to get into heaven by force, and he needs to get religion, philosophies, and all this stuff. You know, anything you can think of aside from the cross, going around the cross. But we went, instead of going around the cross, we saw our need and went right into the cross, found the forgiveness of sins. And happy is the man whose sins are forgiven. And happy is the man to whom the Lord will not impute iniquity ever again. That's the message of the gospel. That's the whole ball of wax.
You know what's so beautiful about what you were sharing about Pastor D'Amelio? So here's a guy, and so how many met in that space above the bar?
Oh, at first, our first church was, it was above a bar room. It's called the Tawanda Club. It's still there today. Yeah, he was a younger guy. And it was above a bar room, and we rented it for $8 a week. And when we walked in that day, I think there were probably maybe 15, 20 people singing "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." And we were like, we're home. Because we had church hopped we went to Reuben has a lot of churches. Episcopal, Methodist, Congregation, Bible believing, supposedly Bible believing. You know, and we went to all these places. And we're not hearing God's voice. We're not hearing because we were saying, God, where do we go? And we come into this church, Pastor Frank's church, and there he is preaching about God loves you. The blood covers your sins.
So 15 and 20,
I'm home.
and then he goes to a nursing home, and there's maybe
Nursing home,
15 and 20 there. You know.
prison ministry, and they get because he didn't have a big church.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But he believed in outreach. He believed just what we're doing here. We have outreach.
300 people show up at his, like, who are these people?
Yeah, there was a lot of people there.
Like he had that kind of impact. You know, like we don't know. We kind of mismeasure our impact. You know, we just say, well, it's just a little something here, a little something there. Yeah. So when he gets off the planet, there's like a lot of people that were impacted by his life.
But his interesting thing was when we were sitting there. This is just between us because I don't know. I'm not sure. You can see the face to face online, but just in case you don't, just leave it right here. But his oldest daughter got up, Judy, and she said just previous in the month that he passed away, during the month he passed away, his memory was so bad he wasn't even sure if he was saved, if God loved him. And that's all he did was preach about the love of God for 50 years, 60 years. But his mind was his memory was so bad that he wondered why does God love me?
Well, thank God, our salvation is not based on our ability to intellectually embrace it.
But that can happen. Yeah. As we deteriorate, our outward man perishes. Even though our outward man perishes, our inward man.
Like it or not. And we were all as well until we got saved, which was not really something that we pursued, it was something that just God pursued. But having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them. Every person on this planet is born with this thing, the agnostic thing. Like an agnostic, agnostic says, if you ask an agnostic, do you believe in God? He says, we cannot tell. We cannot tell if there is or there is not a God. That's agnosticism. I mean, in one sense. And then he says, because of the blindness of their heart, another flaw being past feeling, and so they've given themselves over to lasciviousness, I can identify with that. Yeah, what the hell is the point? Like, why should I fight this fight of life? You know, as an unsaved person, that was my rationale. Plus also vanity is a tendency towards nothingness. It's the tendency that I have to just blow off all responsibility, blow off the reality of this world. There's no point in it. There's hopelessness in the whole thing. And every individual has this. You know, I mean, in some degree or not.
It's part of the depravity.
Yeah,
It's part of depravity.
It's part of what the depravity is that we have. I'm not making an excuse for it. They're going to go to hell if they don't get saved. But on the other side, like I want to keep loving people, and I don't want to be a judge. I can't be a judge. Like you brought up the verse, Pastor Wood. 2 Corinthians 5:19. To wit, that God was in Christ, not imputing men's trespasses against them, and has given unto us a ministry of reconciliation. You know, like we're called, and I'm not rebuking anybody here. I mean, I'm just bringing up this point of view. Is that you know, and I forgot what I was saying here, but I mean, I think the thing is, it's like we're called to that. We're called to the billionaire. We're called to the guy on the street. We're called to the down and out. We're called to the guy who is the victim. You know, like I can't take a political stance in this world. I can't even say I'm liberal or I'm conservative. I can't even say that because I don't know who I'm going to meet today.
You're a child of the King.
You know,
Yeah.
so we're representing him. And the other thing I'm thinking about this is because honestly, there's so much pressure, and it's much easier to just capitulate to, you know, okay, this is status quo. You know, this is Donald Trump's doing this. Okay, so this is what I'm with it. You know, I mean, okay, I can be with all that, but I got to separate myself from that. You know, because like you said, Pastor, we have a ministry of reconciliation.
Yeah, we have
that I'm responsible for.
That's beautiful. We have a ministry.
And
We
the
each
point
have a
is,
ministry.
here,
He
let me
anoints
finish
us
up.
for that ministry.
So
too.
my
We don't-
point is
yeah.
also that we're not only just talking to wicked, rotten, stinking people, we're talking to people that don't know what they do. I mean, that's what Jesus said on the cross. Father, forgive them, they don't know what they do. So I just wanted to say that
That's beautiful. Yeah.
as a part of the...
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's the solution is Christ. The problem is man's. The solution is Christ.
Yeah.
And those that are believers are, you know, we each have a ministry, and God anoints us for that particular ministry. He doesn't tell us to go do something that He doesn't give us the power and the strength to do.
But my next question is,
amazing.
now that I have chased up to this reality, that I am called to speak somehow to these people, to people who don't have a clue, then what is my methodology? Like I can think every week, I ain't going out there, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know how to do this thing. I don't know what to say to people. I don't know any of that. I mean, I can think that every week, and I do think it every week. And
Well, that's between you and God, because now He took away the old nature, which we talked about. He takes away the old nature, crucifies it, and now He didn't just leave us there.
Yeah.
He gives us a new nature that's attached to us, the Spirit. And now it's between you. Now you're walking, instead of walking with man, you're walking with God. And you're turning people to righteousness through the Spirit. That's it. I mean, you can't, He doesn't just take away, He certainly died for us and took away our sin nature and the consequences and the penalty of sin. But He gave us something even more precious, which is made us a new creature now.
yeah.
So now we walk, the Bible says for us to walk in the newness of life now, and not go back to the old. we could, what he's saying, follow grace. So, you know, that's the whole reason we came to Bible college. So that's why we got.
Talk about one of the consequences of sin
Yeah.
is that grace was revealed.
Right, yeah. it was
Angels
all by
had never
grace, yeah.
seen
It's all by
grace before
Yeah.
the fall. This was some aspect of God that was revealed
Yeah, yeah.
that had never been witnessed before, and they marveled looking in at redemption because of that.
Yep.
And it's like, one thought that was rich to me this morning was that the incarnation was God visiting us in prison.
Right.
That passage that escalates about what Jesus said, you fed me, you clothed me, I was a stranger and you welcomed me, and you visited me in prison. It goes from degrees of difficulty. In the moment, it's easy. I have food, they don't have food, I give it to them. It's over. Clothing you is a little more difficult. Welcoming you as a stranger exposes me to dangers, potentially, if you're a dangerous person. Visiting you in prison is going way out of my way. You are isolated, you are condemned, you may be very guilty of what you should be there for a really good reason, or you be there because you're innocent. It doesn't matter. And that's what the incarnation
That's why he
was.
came, yeah. That's why he came.
Jesus was visiting humanity in prison and then setting us free, at the cost of his own life and his own blood. So I think this is the thing that reveals, to the person who's in ignorance, the person who's oblivious to the fact that they're sinning, because sin really is against God, not against anybody else. And they don't even acknowledge his authority or existence, potentially, even though subconsciously they all know. There's a part of them that knows and just denies it and lives in schizophrenia in order to justify themselves. But grace is the thing that gets revealed, and it's a marvelous thing. It's a supernatural, divine thing that doesn't exist in the world naturally. It has to come from heaven, and it's something we have access to that no one else you only have access to it if you know the grace giver. He's the God of all grace. So this is one of those things that, the effects of sin has also made has revealed a lower place for this to flow into, and reveal God's. Let's face it, God is invisible. You're talking about a person that no one sees, except through your actions. As someone you say that you know him, and you're doing something that doesn't make sense. That's of a higher nobility. You're giving somebody status they don't deserve. You're going the extra mile. You're noticing them when no one else sees them, when they don't have value. In a society where what's important is your value. You are giving them value.
He was mentioning an eye for an eye.
Yeah, and it's just you're giving them value they don't deserve. You're saying, okay, just take care of the tree, we'll take care of the shed. It's all right, we love you. Well, why do you love us? Our tree just fell in your shed. Well, I'll tell you why if you want to know, about God that cannot be revealed any other way.
That's why Paul put a curse on it, that anyone that added to grace, though we or an angel or anyone else add it or take away from the grace of God, there was a curse on it. So God says in the Beatitudes at the end, he says, God, you're a child of the King. And he talks about how we're to behave towards others, and he says, for God is kind to the evil and the unthankful.
Yeah.
It's kind to the evil and the unthankful. Look, he didn't fight Judas the whole way.
Yeah.
Even, have not I chosen 12 of you, and one of you is devil? He just loved them up, But ultimately, it was the choice. It's our choice. It's the choice.
Well, we're going to invite people to understand the greatest event in all of existence for us. resurrection.